Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the SOG Pentagon XR. Definitely a more interesting looking knife, or a more appealing looking knife from SOG versus, I say like here recently, but really I just haven't been paying attention. SOG has been making better quality, more utilitarian, at least looking knives for the last couple of years, and I've just been snoozing on them. So thank you to this gentleman here, My Nightly EDC, on Instagram, for sending this in for review so that I could take a look at it. Please make sure to follow him on Instagram. It's because of people like him that I'm able to bring you guys daily knife content. It's also because of my generous patrons. Thanks for supporting me. There's a link for Patreon right down below. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. This knife is available right now. I will link it right down in the description so that you can check it out if you'd like to. Overall length of the SOG Pentagon XR is coming in at about 8¼ inches. Blade length is coming in at 3.6. Cutting edge is coming in at exactly 3.5 inches. Those are ratios that I really like. How about some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1, Rat 1, and the Ontario Rat Model 2. So you can see there, it's definitely a full-size knife, just slightly shorter than the Rat 1. How about up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3? We're at a slight angle. It is almost exactly as long as the Spyderco PM2, definitely longer than the Para 3. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue and the Benchmade Bug Out? Yeah, a little bit bigger than both. Let's go ahead and do carry profile. Excuse me. Thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. This is a fairly thick knife. It's definitely more robust in the handle than the Spyderco Para 3. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. This is a little bit... no, handle length is about the same as the PM2, maybe a little bit shorter. Definitely longer than the Para 3, but even though it's got a flipper tab, the maximum height is just shy. And it's still a little bit shorter this way than the PM2 and Para 3, so there you go. Do with that information what you will. How about a hardware check? Let's get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the description, in the section of my description that... says my tools. So unfortunately, and I know this because I attempted to recenter the blade, the pivot is a T6. Oh, SOG, come on now. No, I don't even like T6 on the body screws, which is the case here. T6 on the screw that's holding in the pocket clip, the body screws, the pivot on both sides. Look, it's not a deal breaker, but come on. On a knife that's, sporting this robust tactical nature, like, let's get some bigger hardware on there. It's not a deal breaker, but geez Louise, at least the pivot, that's kind of a bummer. Let's go ahead and measure blade stock thickness on the SOG Pentagon. So what we have is not a super duper thick, robust blade, 125 thousandths or so. What are the materials? We're looking at CTS XHP cryo. Oh, cryo. CTS XHP. The cryo treatment, I believe, slightly improves toughness, corrosion resistance, and potentially wear resistance. I'm talking, from what I understand, an incremental difference between cryo-treated XHP and standard XHP, and I believe that's the case with anything that's able to be cryo-treated. So... I wouldn't put too much stock into that, but okay, right? It's not hurting anything for sure. G10 on the handle scales, and then we do have, fortunately, some countersunk steel liners with a little bit of milling in there. So good materials for sure. Let's go ahead and weigh it. I'm going to guess this weighs 4.5 ounces. Okay, a little more than that, 4.87 ounces. Ratios, not perfect. Definitely going to be too big and too heavy for some people to carry. For me, this is pretty much right on the money. This is the type of knife that I like to carry. Full size, about this weight range, right? Definitely the type of knife that I like to carry. Have we done everything there? Did we go over all of the details? I think that we did. Let's go ahead and move on here. So this is sporting the SOG XR lock, which operates basically exactly the same way as the like Benchmade axis lock or the Hobe able lock, right? It's essentially the same thing. So you do have some fidget factor in there, right? You can whip it in and out. This has a flipper tab and it's got thumb studs. I'll tell you right now, the thumb studs are my preferred way to deploy it because of the angle. It's not really a detent, but what's acting as the detent, at least in the case of this particular knife. I don't know if all of them are this way. It's a bit light for the flipper tab to feel super duper. I mean, I'm getting it right here, right? But it just feels a little bit light. It kind of feels like, I don't know. I've trained myself to push a lot harder, right? But it's not so light that it's able to be shaken out. So I think see what I mean there? Like I can definitely fail it. And it's not that big a deal in the world there. But I find myself wanting to kind of use a little bit of risk. Using the thumb stud, it's completely fine. And honestly, after you kind of adapt to this, right? If you push button it and even light switching it, you just kind of have to activate that muscle memory and make sure that you apply the appropriate amount of force to get it to flip out. It's just a little bit light. And something else that bothers me is that because of how this is, in its closed position, there's a little bit of detent play. And if I shake it, can you hear that? That bothers me a little bit. Does that hurt anything? No, I think it's probably just the nature of how I think this is probably somewhat similar to how the axis lock works, because it's not really a detent right inside of an axis lock. It's just kind of it feels very similar to that. It's just what's acting as the detent in the case of this Benchmade Griptilian feels a little bit better. I don't know if a flipper tab was totally necessary on this guy, but the nice thing is you can basically, you can basically ignore it and just use the flipper tab. I'm sorry, the thumb studs if you want to. The thumb studs are a bit pointy and a bit sharp. It's easy to access them because of the cutouts here. It's just after a little bit, you're going to notice it. It's not really that big of a deal, right? Ergonomically, this thing is very comfortable, and we've got a lot of jimping all over the place. It's not horribly aggressive jimping. I mean, it's in typical SOG fashion, and by that I mean it's everywhere. Here. Pretty similar to a Rick Hinderer knife, which I'm a huge fan of, right? It's just, but the jimping is not so aggressive that I'm like, oh my gosh, right? I just don't mind it. It's got a simple, straight lines here and then a place for your index finger. That is pretty much where they want you to hang on to it. There's a little bit of extra room, so if you've got hands that are similar to mine or an XL glove, you've got a little bit of room to move around, right? And you're fairly close to the blade. Unfortunately, the thumb studs are a bit in the cutting path, so you're gonna put a heavy pressure cut straight down. You're not super far. You're about two-thirds of an inch, 3/4 of an inch, right? It's okay. Not really that big of a deal. Just something to point out there. Edges are nicely chamfered. There's nothing too crazy going on here. The peel ply texturing is above medium, but not heavy. In and out of the pocket over time, it will still fray up your pants. But I mean, hey, as far as being locked in, if you worry about, if you work in a wet or slippery environment, you're not going to drop this. You notice the pocket clip a little bit. It's not bad because of its positioning and its size. I'm starting to really like these shorter clips. I'm not sure why they insisted on it being, it's not shallow. It's just more shallow than it needed to be. But it's fine and it's flat and rounded off, so it doesn't really bother me. The XR lock is plenty easy to actuate and honestly pretty natural feeling. I mean, you can kind of do this over and over again. It's also, the action is also pretty smooth. I mean, it's just smooth the way that it's designed. It doesn't feel like glassy or anything. It's just once you release that lock, it's going to fall. I was experiencing a little bit of blade play on this guy, and it was also, well, truthfully, it was also pretty much exactly as off-center as you're seeing right now. I tried to center it and got that pivot crank down, to the point where it was solid, and it pretty much just went right back to the position that it was in, which is, I'm going to guess, probably going to be, your guys' experience. This is a Taiwan-made SOG, not a US-made SOG, but also not a Chinese-made SOG. I'm not sure where all of their plants are. I don't know that it says that anywhere, but it says it on the box. Wait, let me find it for you guys. Because I know there's always people out there that are like, SOGs aren't made in the United States. cold steels aren't made in the United States. It's hard to, because the box is so tall. There we go. Designed in Seattle, made in Taiwan. Taiwan is not China. I don't have a problem with, honestly, I don't have a problem with manufacturing from anywhere, but it's always nice to see stuff when made in the United States, but it doesn't bother me at all when things are made in Taiwan. Taiwan does have very, very good manufacturing quality, and it is showing off fairly well here. So that's fine. That's also going to include a higher price tag, especially considering the materials, right? Anyways, let's move on to the blade. This is an attractive blade. It's a dagger style blade with a mostly false edge, but if you look up here, what? Okay. There might be some circumstances where that would be beneficial, but I'm just going to go ahead and say that I don't agree with that being sharp. Most dagger style blades or dagger ground blades in folding knives have false edges up here, and that's so you don't cut yourself on the part of the blade that's sticking out. Now, there's no safety issue with that, the other side of that tip being sharpened when it's closed, because you can't touch it. My problem with that is that, listen, as far as how dagger laws are defined, like here in Kansas, yeah, no big deal. Nobody cares here. There are lots of places where dagger ground, like truly, like knives that are sharpened on both sides, are going to be illegal. Where the line is, exactly how much of the other side of the edge needs to be sharpened before it's considered a dagger, I don't know. I'm going to guess this is a situation where if you're in a tough spot and a police officer takes this off of you and they really want to nail you down, they're going to use that. I don't like that at all. Now, I don't agree with the laws because, you know, truthfully, the way that knives should be designed is just like, is it dangerous for the person who's using it, right? And the way that this is designed is fine. Like, it's not, you're not going to cut yourself on it. So I don't agree with the law. I'm just saying, like, this just makes it troublesome. Like, this could potentially get you in a lot of trouble, depending on how the law is defined and how it's going to be defined in that specific moment. So no. And also, it just makes it to where, like, it's okay, but it doesn't look pretty. This is a pretty brand new knife, and it just make this a false edge to the tip. We don't need that, right? Oh, but it's a tactical advantage. You're not getting, that's not doing anything, right? The blade would look better. It would be easier to make it look better from a manufacturing standpoint consistently if they just didn't do that. Fortunately, this fuller that goes down the center that does look nice does meet up with that center grind line, and that center grind line kind of goes out to the tip. It just looks a little bit goofy, right? Because of how this blade is ground, despite the fact that it's not an ultra-thick blade stock, the maximum thickness, the full thickness of the stock goes right down the middle, which means there's not a lot of room for it to drop down to the cutting edge. The end result is that the blade will cut and slice, but it's pretty thick behind the edge, right? Not like crazy. It's just, you know, that's what you're going to be dealing with. Will it get you through the day? Yeah, just fine. And CTS XHP is a great steel, by the way. It's essentially stainless D2. Good edge retention, good toughness, great corrosion resistance, obviously. And it's not going to be an absolute nightmare to sharpen. Most people will tell you CTS XHP is a fantastic steel, and it is powder formed. So it's definitely a premium steel. Yeah, we don't see enough CTS XHP in this world, so I love CTS XHP. That's a huge advantage, having the qualities of D2 plus stainlessness, and I think XHP will hold, if it's properly heat treated, will actually hold an edge a little bit longer than D2. But yeah, that's essentially, if I'm not mistaken, that's roughly what CTS XHP is. Here's something that I don't like. Studies and Observations Group, Pentagon XR Cryo. Listen. Just Cryo XHP. What is going on with my camera? Just Cryo XHP. I don't know what the Studies and Observations Group is. I'm not disrespecting it. I'm just saying, like, I don't need that on the blade. And then the other side, there's just nothing. How about just nothing and then Cryo XHP, right? That would have been fine. I don't know why we need that. Otherwise, the blade looks great. And honestly, the overall profile of this knife, I'm somebody who likes a simple, straight-lined knife. There's a reason that there's a lot of knives that look like this. It's because this style of knife works with the human hand. And this is no exception. It works really, really well. In the open position, there is no blade play now. Absolutely no blade play up, down, left, or right, and that was after I adjusted a little bit. So the lock is definitely solid. This is a fully ambidextrous knife, and so fortunately there is a left-handed position for the pocket clip. That's awesome. So left-handed people can enjoy this just as much. In fact, more, because they don't have to look at the paragraph that has the research and observations group on this side, right? Maybe that, I don't know. Actually, considering how you hold it, I guess right-handed people would probably see that less. So left-handed people, unfortunately, you're going to have to look at that while you're cutting this way. If you're looking straight down over the... What am I talking about? Anyways, back here we have a backspacer that I believe is also... Let me get the flashlight on this. Look for the fibers. No, you know what? This up here is G10, but the backspacer looks like it might just be plastic. Or maybe aluminum or something like that. Not a big deal. It'll hold up just fine. It's not perfectly flush with everything. And, you know, I don't know that it was intended to be. But, okay, it's doing its job. The pocket clip is okay. I just don't know why they mounted it so low. I mean, they could have come up higher. Well, it's a tactical knife, so, you know, really puts you in a tactical advantage, or in a circumstance where you might need to use a knife in a tactical way. Oh, tactical. You'd want the knife positioned more shallow in your pocket so that it's... Whatever. I don't need a deep carry clip, but it bothers me. It's like a knife like this. I don't want a lot. I just don't like a lot of knives sticking up out of my pocket. Like 99.9% of the people using this knife, this is what I always say about knives that might have a more tactical design philosophy behind them. Great. A knife is made for a specific purpose. Maybe it's more geared towards personal protection or tactical scenarios. Okay, regardless of that, 99.9% of people, and it doesn't even matter if it's marketed that way, 99.9% of the people who actually buy it will just end up using it, and it's actually probably beyond that. 99.99999% of people are just going to be opening boxes when using it in a normal, right? So, you know, I'd rather things just be convenient and geared towards that. In a serious scenario, I'm sure you'll be just fine either way, right? But it's just like, I don't want that much of a knife sticking out. It's really not even that bad. It's really not even that. I'm just saying, like, it's weird that they mounted it there, but I'm getting hung up on a little teeny tiny detail that's not a deal breaker anyway. And regardless of what this knife was designed for, it's just, I look at knives as tools on this channel. So that's the kind of stuff that I comment on. Anyways, this side of the knife is pretty much exactly, I mean, in fact, it is. It's an exact mirror. This side of the scale is a mirror of the front. Like I was saying before, solid lockup. There's also no detent lash, which is, I'm sorry, pivot lash movement this way while the pivot is, or I'm sorry, while the blade is halfway out. There is a stop pin back here. Can you see it? There we go. I think there's a little bit of shouldering. Yeah, there is definitely a little bit of shouldering on the blade tang. It's just hard to see because it's black. And then in a closed position, again, we have a teeny weeny little bit of detent lash that bothers me because it rattles a little bit while it's closed and the blade is not perfectly centered. This knife is all right. What's the price on it? $175. If everything was perfect and there was no detent lash, no rattle, the blade was centered, and we did not have this, I don't like this at all, then I'd say, hey, this is pretty solid. I think doing a different grind would have been better suited for general EDC, which is, again, the vast majority of the time what you're going to be using it for. But it looks cool like this, and it gives it some character. This is a well-designed knife. Obviously, SOG has been, for the last at least couple of years, been thinking a lot more about how their knives fit the human hand, the materials that they're using on their knives, right? The overall quality. The quality on this isn't bad. There's just little teeny tiny nitpicks. It's pretty good. I'd rather, instead of being like, oh, I accept these flaws and I just want it to be less expensive. No, I want it to stay at $175 and I want all those little teeny tiny things to be fixed for that amount of money. At that point, I would say, yeah, you know, it's pretty good. There's a lot of competition in this zone, really heavy competition at $175. So am I going to tell you guys to rush out and buy this and it's the best thing in the whole world? No. If you pick this up, you're probably going to have to suffer around a couple of fit and finish issues. There's nothing unbelievably special going on with this knife, and it's not like, you know, if you buy this that it's going to make your life that much better versus other things in the same territory. But I think people who do go ahead and pick it up, like if you like how this looks, maybe you like the XR lock, maybe you're just, you know, maybe you're an ambidextrous person, you really like using an ambidextrous knife. Even with some of these weird little fit and finish issues, it will probably, you know, be satisfactory. Maybe you'll get lucky and you'll get one with absolutely no fit and finish issues. In any case, you're going to have to deal with this, and you got to be careful. If you live in Kansas or another state that has similar knife laws, probably going to be okay. But for the rest of you guys, it's going to be kind of, in my opinion, might be kind of a risky carry. And again, that depends on how the law defines a dagger blade and how that specific police officer or person of the law feels about you and the circumstances surrounding them interacting with you. So be careful about that. I'm going to link this knife down below. You can pick it up if you'd like to. It's pretty good. It's just not something I'm ready to throw on my most recommended knives playlist. In any case, My Nightly EDC, thank you so much for sending this in. This does make me want to pay a lot more attention to SOG because they're obviously putting serious effort into their designs, and they're trying with fit and finish, and they're trying with materials right. This is good. I think this is more of the right direction for SOG, and I'm happy to see that this exists. And honestly, a lot of the other stuff that SOG has been putting out, it seems like SOG has pulled themselves out of cringe territory and into, yeah, these are actually serious knives territory. So that's pretty cool. But make sure you follow My Nightly EDC on Instagram. Make sure you follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like. So check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.